characters is referred to as U.S. corrugated, but that has more to do with other operations.
Okay.
We may or may not use the same name.
Conference recording has been turned on.
Hello, sir. Thank you for retaking my sit down. Tonight? Yes. Sure. Yeah.
Sure, I'm gonna have two chairs here. Hey, Craig. You saw Eric's message? You saw Eric's message?
Gents. I got all kinds of stuff on there. It was,
Called order Kent County Levy Court Committee meeting, Kent County Administrative Complex, 555 Bay Road, Dover, Tuesday, November 17, 2020, Levy Court Chamber, room 203 at 7 p.m. sharp. Mr. Pedamaj.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we begin with the committee meetings, just a brief word of procedure for the audience, both in person here at 555 Bay Road and also those who may be joining on the conference line over the telephone. This is an official proceeding of the Levy Court. It is being recorded, and all rules of procedure adopted by Levy Court for committee meetings are in effect. And we also follow the Mason's Rules of Order. Particularly for the folks who are on the phone, there will be opportunities throughout the meeting to provide public comment. If you wish to make a public comment, we will ask you to press *1 on your phone, and we can unmute you and bring you into the meeting. And we ask that before you make your comments, that you state your name and address for the record. And also for the folks who are also listening via phone line, if all those present here could announce who they are before they speak so that the callers will know who's speaking, that would be helpful as well. Mr. President, turn the floor back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fadimaj. And for the record, we have 6 commissioners present, and Mr. Buxton will be here shortly. He's on a problem with a water situation down in Harrington, so he'll be here shortly. So with that being said, also the county administrator is here along with the county attorney. First item on administration, Mr. Angel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Fadimaj?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have with us this evening Miss Lake Veazey, and she's in the audience, and she's here tonight to speak to the committee about a project that she has been working on through her involvement with 4-H. We did see a preview of this work in our winter meeting when we met with the Ag Extension Service back in January, and Lake Veazey was the guest speaker. And she was invited back to address you all in March, and then of course the shutdown occurred, and we haven't had a chance until now to schedule an opportunity for Lake to present to the commissioners a little more about her project. So at this time, I'd invite Lake to come to the front podium and present her comments to the commissioners. Lake, if you would. Welcome.
Thank you. Do I need to keep my mask on, or do I?
Yeah, you can drop the mask, and
Okay.
if you want to pull the mic a little closer also.
All right. Good evening. My name is Lake Veazey, and I have a severe allergy to peanut. And surprisingly, I may be severely allergic to something else. And if this happens, I do hope that someone grabs an EpiPen auto-injector and uses it on me to save my life. I keep an EpiPen in my backpack like other allergy kids at all times. But many kids don't even know they have a food allergy, or they may be allergic to a bee sting. And if those kids have their first time allergic reaction at school or on the bus, EpiPen is a lifesaver. There may not be enough time to wait for an ambulance to arrive. In 2008, after my sister died in a car accident, my mom called my school asking if I had an allergic reaction, could an EpiPen be used? The answer was no. The driver would call 911 and wait. Unfortunately, in this time of waiting for an ambulance, the outcome may not be a good one. I am relieved that Delaware schools are required to have this emergency medication. However, the regulation does not require that the epinephrine be in an EpiPen form. It could be in a cumbersome bottle that a person would need to syringe out. When a child is clutching their neck or passed out, would you, a non-medical person, be able to draw up the correct dosage of epinephrine and administer? This EpiPen auto-injector is much easier to use in an emergency. I'd like to see if Kent County Levy Court would help with funding that would provide public schools and buses with EpiPens. Even if we first start off with a couple elementary schools and their buses, perhaps in the Cesar Rodney School District, I have noticed that in Pennsylvania, administration of epinephrine auto-injectors by school bus drivers and school crossing guards was signed by Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf on May 16, 2017. The the law allows school bus drivers and school crossing guards to administer epinephrine auto-injectors to students if their employers choose to permit them to do so. All in all, I'm willing to help prepare our schools and hoping that the Kent County Levy Court will find funding for the EpiPen form auto-injectors. Last March, I did call Bay Health requesting help with this, but I never heard back. So thank you for your attention. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Sweeney.
Thanks, Commissioner Angel. So, Ms. Vasey, this is not like public speaking where we don't get to ask you questions when you're done. Do you remember who you tried to reach out to at Bay Health?
I do not remember.
Okay. Is there a group or department there that is key to providing some type of service that has to do with allergies?
I think I just talked to someone in general with
Okay.
this.
So, have you talked to anybody at the state level about law changes that would allow bus drivers? Do our laws prevent bus drivers or others that are not in the medical profession from administering an EpiPen?
Could you mind repeating the question?
Are there any laws right now that prevent non-medical people from administering an EpiPen in an event?
I am not sure of that yet.
So you probably need to talk to a state legislator too, to see if there's laws, and then work to get those laws changed also.
Okay.
But at the very least, I'd like to see us help get started in some elementary schools, even if it's, all the K to 3 schools first, because if a student's going to have a reaction, that's where it's going to be. By the time they get to high school, they already know that they have a severe allergy to bee stings or peanut butter or any of the other myriad of things they could be. How much does an EpiPen cost?
In EpiPen, well, there's an epinephrine auto-injector called Adrenaclick. It's the same dosage and same form as the original EpiPen, and it's sold at $110 at Target and CVS for a 2-pack.
So do you have an estimate of how many you would like to put in schools or in buses?
Well, for elementary schools, there's 2 different sizes. So I would say get at least 2 of the 2 packs for 66 pounds and under and 66 pounds and over.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Commissioner Howe.
Yeah, I'm remotely familiar with the life-saving capabilities of these pens in the military. We had to do something similar. Of course, it was combat-oriented, all right? But use the pen and then throw it away? Are they refillable or what?
No, they use the pen and they throw them away, yes.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the school districts? Have you really dealt with them specifically about these EpiPens?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if you go out like to Fitzgerald in the CR district, and
Well, I have talked to Milford School District and the nurse there, Miss Sue Smith, and she thinks that it's a great idea that we do need EpiPens in schools and in buses.
okay. Well, so I mean, it seems to me the school districts should, have the resources for this, but everybody is strapped for money, so they might be kind of hesitant to do that. I don't know, but I'd be interested to find out what specific reasons they have for not doing it. It seems like there could be some legal complications too. I don't know if a person could ever have a reaction to an EpiPen. That wouldn't help matters at all.
As far as I know, I don't think you can get a reaction from epinephrine, but I'll check into it.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, it's reasonable. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner
there-
Pepper.
bear with me, I'm losing my voice. One of the things I would suggest, first off, thank you for coming and, bringing this out to us. But one of the things that I would recommend that you do is contact several of the bus companies here in Kent County and see if the law was changed or a law was enacted to allow them to do it, whether the bus companies would allow their people to do it, to do the injections, because they may shy away from it because of legal or being afraid of being sued. But if you get that information together, talk to the bus companies, I would do that before you contact the local legislators to enact the law to allow this. So I would just recommend that you do that. And again, I apologize for my voice.
Anybody else? Well, Lake, I just want to thank you too. That was a fantastic idea what you're bringing forth. During my testing with diabetic supplies, I'm diabetic. I actually had to have an EpiPen with me at times when I could get it. There was a shortage at one time where you couldn't get it, and when you could get it, they had different classifications for those who could get it, and the cost was kind of prohibitive also at the time. I mean, it was up to like $160, what I was told, with insurance. So, the other thing that Commissioner Pepper was saying about checking the law, the Good Samaritan law should take place for something like this too, when you're trying to help somebody. So you want to check into that too, just be sure when you look at that, because when you're helping somebody for that's life-threatening, that law should kick in because you're trying to save somebody. So I just want to throw that out to you. But thank you very much for what you do. Mr. Mr. Pettimaj.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Vasey, I'd also like to commend you on the noble effort bringing this forward to the commissioners. I also have some personal experience. My son, when he was younger, he had a severe food allergy, and we used to have to carry an EpiPen with us until, he got older. He outgrew it, actually. It was a severe dairy reaction, but and it was life-threatening if he got, dairy and cause a histamine reaction and all that. So it's an important endeavor that you're bringing forward. I was wondering if you, in your research, the shelf life of an EpiPen, how long would, if you bought a supply of them, how long would they last? How long do they have to be before they're refreshed? Right. So, if the schools got into this, there would probably be an ongoing maintenance cost associated with keeping the product. And then if you had an idea of what the total cost, and it doesn't sound like you may have that information yet, but you were talking about for the all the schools in the county, or were you talking about a specific district, or what was your...
Just to start off with just the district.
A district?
Yeah.
Which district is that?
I was thinking Caesar Rodney.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good benchmark to start from, so that we understand the magnitude of the cost, quantities involved, what the unit cost came up tonight, and whether or not the schools were in a position to partner with that or help out with the cost as well. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Angel.
Commissioner Sweeney.
At this point, would it be prudent to ask Lake to get some information for us from the schools and buses, and then come back and present and answer some questions? And at that point, we could probably help out.
You mean give her homework?
I will do my homework.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think that's a great question, and I think that's very well self-deserving. So have somebody come back and give us that information. Lake, do you mind that?
Thank you.
I see your mom recording everything, Lake, so she knows what the questions have been asked.
I made sure to tell her can you videotape this so I don't forget?
Okay, excellent. All right.
So we don't actually have to do anything tonight, so we'll have her come back and next time. But at this time, Lake, Commissioner Sweeney has a presentation for you.
So Gentlemen, I've said this in the past, and we've all signed this. So Lake was one of 2 4-H members that were selected as outstanding 4-H member for 2019-2020. And we had to do a virtual Zoom session to make the presentation. So knowing that she was coming here tonight, I have the presentation. I'm going to read it into the public record, and then if Ms. Pitts would come down and take a picture, we'd like to present this to you, or I would like, we're not all coming up there, but.
Oh my goodness.
Kent County Levy Court tribute to Lake Vasey, outstanding 4-H member 2019-2020. Kent County Levy Court recognizes Lake Vasey for being selected outstanding 4-H member 2019-2020 from the Pure Country 4-H Club. She has been actively involved in the 4-H for 13 years. She is an exceptionally talented and innovative leader and has provided guidance and participation in local, county, state, and national 4-H events and activities. On the state and Diamond Clover levels, Lake Vasey worked tirelessly on behalf of children with severe allergies to secure funding for EpiPens at each of Delaware's public schools and school buses. Because of her inner drive and motivation to serve, she is the obvious choice for the outstanding 4-H member of 2019-2020. She has great attitude and is a role model for 4-Hers following her. Kent County Levy Court extends its sincere congratulations to Lake Vasey for winning this very special award. The success of the 4-H organization deeply depends on members like you who are willing to get involved and lead the way. On behalf of the citizens of Kent County, we wish you the very best in all your future endeavors. Signed by P. Brooks Banner, the President, Terry Pepper, Vice President, Michael Pettit, County Administrator, and the remainder of the Levy Court Commissioners.
Oh, thank you.
Smile, Jody.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweeney. Okay, OPEB assumptions, Mr. Quayla.
Jody, you guys don't have to stay for the rest of this.
They might be interested in it.
Thank you, Commissioner Angel. Commissioners may recall, I think early October, I was before you summarizing recommendations from the Pension Review Committee. And I bring this back up just so that you can recall seeing the history of how we've gotten to these assumption recommendations for the OPEB. And as you may recall from the prior meeting, you did approve number 5, the employer funding policy. And that was important because the actuary had already included that in the 2019 report. Now the actuary is working on the 2020 report as of June the 30th. And it usually takes him about 6 months. So this information is something he will need to know to conclude the valuation. One is they recommended, as has the Pension Review Committee, that you update the mortality table. And the Pension Review Committee has also recommended that you update the termination rate table. And as you see there at the bottom, the estimated impact to the contribution is about $221,000. Now, just for your edification, I thought you might be interested in the pension. I mean, the actuary actually wanted to do a whole lot more with the cost getting close to $500,000 in additional contribution. But the Pension Review Committee had a number of questions about what they were actually hoping to achieve with those other categories. And that is why they only recommended the 3 that we presented previously. Back to you, Commissioner Angel.
Thank you. Any questions, gentlemen? Move forward to the business meeting. 6 up, 1 absent.
Mr. Chairman, is that a consent agenda item, or is it
Consent item, gentlemen? Yes.
consent agenda?
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, D-Pace proposal, Box Manufacturing Company. Is that Mr. DePrima?
Thank you. It's been about 3 years since I was here talking about this subject. There are some new faces. Let me start by just congratulating those of you who got reelected this year. And let me just say to Mr. Banta, congratulations on your retirement. It's not going to be the same coming here without you on this commission all these years. So again, I was here 3 years ago. We have some new faces, but I'm really here to ask that Kent County consider becoming a participating county in the PACE program, which stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy Financing, which is a voluntary tax-based, tax assessment-based private financing mechanism that's now available in Delaware. And I'm going to show some slides just to, it's been 3 years, to remind everybody a little bit about how it works. But I do want to say 3 years ago, I was here asking the Levy Court to support and learn about the SB 113, and I'm happy to say since then a lot has happened. So the PACE legislation was passed. I'm happy to say, and I'm kind of proud that it was actually passed with some bipartisan support. It obviously got the support of the Democratic caucus, but I was proud of the fact that the 2 minority leaders at the time, Gary Simpson and Danny Short, voted for this legislation, as well as right here in Kent County, Mr. Spiegelman and Senator Bonini were also supporters of the legislation. So we did get some bipartisan support on it. Since then, once the legislation passed, we developed guidelines. Newcastle County became the first county to actually participate, so they signed an agreement like what is before you here. Since then, we've actually financed about $6.5 million, $6.7 million in financing up in Newcastle County. So, and in fact, Newcastle has done some of the billing that's required of the county. So it's gone full circle. We've had a full circuit on this. But again, what PACE is, ultimately, it's an economic development program that has environmental benefits because it's really private sector financing for energy efficiency and water conservation and clean energy projects. And what brought us here tonight, I think what inspired me to come back to the Levy Court now is I did get a proposal from the Project Cape box manufacturing plant that I think you're all aware of. Andreas Akaris is here on behalf of Project Cape. I think he's going to want to say a couple words in a little while. That's a project here in Kent County in Dover. But again, I think it's important that we just take a step back and do sort of a PACE 101 for everybody. I have just a few short slides. So if we can tee them up. Oh, so this is when the bill was signed in 2018. And what I love about that picture is that is a combination of some legislators, but it's also business people, it's contractors, but it's also environmental oriented folks. So the Sierra Club's there and a few other things. So it was really both economic development and environmental folks who were behind this. Next slide. So again, PACE is an economic development strategy. It is and it's only for commercial buildings, non-residential buildings only. It secures private investment in energy savings or renewable energy through voluntary property assessments. The key is the assessments. And it helps with businesses' bottom line while increasing their property values. Next slide. So again, what could qualify in this? Just about any kind of energy efficiency measure, roofing, heating, ventilation, lighting, water pumps, but it's also renewable energy, which here in Delaware for the most parts means solar projects. But anything that saves energy or produces clean energy qualifies. The basics behind it is financing dollars comes from private sources, so there's no county or public money in this lending. The county assessment is placed to pay debt service similar to property assessments. The county then collects the service fees. So on a tax bill, for somebody who volunteers for this program, there's a line item on there that says your debt service for the year. The county collects the money, and the way it's set up with Newcastle, all the money is collected by the county. They send it to my organization. We send it out to the borrowers. And that's the role of the county, is to authorize the assessment and to collect the money. I think what's important here is that PACE assessment survives a sale of a property. So unlike a loan, it goes with the property, just like an assessment. And that would include any kind of foreclosures. And then also future PACE assessments can be passed along to the new property owner. Somebody who buys the property, the assessment could stay with it. So why do lenders, next slide. So why do lenders even like to do this? Well, it's a stronger type of collateral, having an assessment on the property. There are lower default rates. It spreads the costs and benefits possibly to tenants, and it opens up some new markets for them. So things where they couldn't lend before, they're now making lending. So then next slide is, why would a building owner, why would a building owner or a new building owner like Mr. Karras's company be interested in this? Well, it allows for longer term paybacks, longer than traditional bank financing. There's no money out of pocket. You can finance these out up to 100%. It's done on a positive cash flow basis. The energy savings are expected to pay for the debt service. There's increasing property values to their property. It brings investment into a property. PACE can transfer on the sale. And there's also shared benefits and costs with tenants for those tenant situations. So then the question is, why would mortgage lenders give consent? So under this program and under Delaware law, you cannot do a PACE financing if there's any underlying mortgage holders, they have to consent to it. So why would a mortgage holder consent to something? Well, first off, it makes their collateral more valuable, right? It's investment in a collateral they've already lent on. It improves the borrower's cash flow. I mentioned that already. The debt service has got to pay for through the energy savings. And then very important is, if there is a default, and they're very rare, only the PACE assessment is in arrears that's outstanding. So unlike a loan, the whole loan isn't called, just the amount in arrears is called. So it's a much smaller point. And obviously it's voluntary, so lenders can say no. So why are local governments getting involved in PACE? So let me say, this is a relatively new program. This started about 10 years ago, and it has now spread to the point where there are, I think, 26 states with PACE legislation, Maryland being one of them, Delaware being one of the latest ones. There's almost, I think, $6 billion or $8 billion in PACE investing across the country, so it really has grown exponentially. But every PACE loan requires a local government. Some states it's municipalities, some states like Delaware and Maryland it's counties, have an interest in this. So why are they interested? Well, first, it is economic development. You're helping a business. It's helping a business's cash flow. And I think you'll hear a little bit some of the rationale later. It creates some jobs, particularly construction jobs. And then are the environmental benefits, reduce CO2 emissions. And there's no tax money involved. It tends to be why throughout the country it's popular in all kinds of states. It's popular in Massachusetts, but it's also popular in Texas. So there's really no tax money actually involved. It's private sector financing. There are some fees that support the assessor's costs that have been built in. And we made sure of this. I call this the Petit-Damage Amendment to the legislation, but Mike was insistent that we have to be very clear that PACE does not go in front of any kind of municipal or county or school tax assessment. So it's behind that, and you'll see that in one of the exhibits. It's actually bold and in capital letters.
Is it titled the Petit-Damage section?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I call it. Unfortunately, we didn't get it in writing anywhere, Mike. I'm sorry. But anyway, so again, it's key here is voluntary, right? So it's voluntary on local governments to participate, it's voluntary on a borrower, it's voluntary on the lender, and the primary mortgage holder has to volunteer to allow their customer to participate. So under our particular program, as it was passed, my organization, the Sustainable Energy Utility, we serve as program administrators. So we're doing quality control. We're making sure that the legislative requirements under the legislation are met, the energy savings requirements are met, the financial responsibilities are being met. We're assisting with the paying out of the dollars once the money is collected. The county tax offices do the loan servicing, and you get a fee for that. And the counties provide the collected funds to the SCU, and as I mentioned earlier, the SCU distributes the product to lenders. And then we cover all of the startup costs, which we've mentioned before. If there's any cost to you in starting up the program, we would be happy to reimburse the counties on that. So that's PACE 101. There are really only 2 operating documents for the county to consider initially. We have drafted those 2 documents for you at Mike's request. They're based on the documents that we did for Newcastle County. The first one is really a resolution. And what the resolution actually does is it really authorizes here the county administrator to sign the second document, which is the participation agreement, and it gives him authority to sign the agreement as what is attached or what's given, but also allows him the authority to approve any amendments or changes within, I believe, within the spirit of that. So it recognizes everything we talked about, but ultimately the resolution gives the authority to the county administrator to sign the participation agreement, which is a much longer agreement, but is really all the rules between the SCU and the county, and ultimately the lenders and the borrowers and how they would operate. So again, that's been prepared in draft for your consideration. So that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, what brought me back to Kent County, quite frankly, my intent was not to come back to Kent County. I was kind of waiting for COVID, and I know you all are busy. But when Mr. Karras' firm came to us through the state economic development folks, I thought this was a time now, it's a good opportunity to come back to you all and ask you all to please consider joining Newcastle County as being our second participating county in this wonderful economic development program that has many environmental benefits. So with that, I think I'm going to ask Mr. Karras, if it's all right, with Mr. Angel, to have him come up and sort of give the perspective of a borrower, unless you want to answer questions first.
Yeah, let's see if we have any questions first. Mr. DePrima, any questions for Mr. DePrima? Mr. Buxton.
For the sake of arguing, or sake of asking, presented a very compelling case, listed a tremendous amount of reasons why this makes complete sense. Is there any reason that you can think of? Is there any reason that's been presented why this is complicated, why this might be a challenge for a county government? Something I don't know about?
So I will tell you that in the case of Newcastle County, there was some concern about in a case of a default, is this going to mess up our ability to collect taxes in a default? So if you have to take it to a sheriff's sale, will it mess anything up? And I think the possibility is just very remote. First off, it's rare across the country. Of the several thousand loans that have been done, there's only been one known default, so it's rare. I think it's rare any county in Delaware for commercial properties to go into default. The other thing is that it's quite likely that the lender would take their legal action to collect money, because you have to assume if they're in default for county taxes, they're probably not paying their loan off either. And so traditionally, those folks will act a lot quicker than the county. So they may actually go in advance to take actions to get paid. Now, I will tell you, in Newcastle, Newcastle said if we go to the rare occasion that there's a default, we'd be happy to collect your taxes at the same time. We could do that. We can ask for our loan money and the county taxes that are outstanding. Newcastle, for their own reasons that I didn't fully understand, said we'd rather not have you get involved in any collection of our taxes. But that's something we would offer to Kent if that's what a service they wanted us to provide. So I think that's the only concern there could be. If I'm taking something to a sheriff's sale and there's a PACE lien on it, does it chill the bidding process for that property, right? And I think the counteraction is this. First off, these are quality properties, tend to borrow, something north of $500,000 on average. And so there's value being added to it. So the counteraction to that, if there is the case of an ever default, it may be a more valuable property than it was without the loan. So that's it. That seems to be the worry in a default. It's a relatively easy administrative thing. So Newcastle County was able to, just reprogram their billing. So it's just another line item was added along with other kinds of assessments. So that turned out not to be a big issue.
Well, two things. I'm going to speak that one just 1 second, but I'm going to rely heavily on what else is presented, a reason why. It sure seems enticing. Legal counsel, no one's expressed a concern, and your explanation appears to be sound related to your point that maybe there's one minor to consider, and the fact that it's done all over the country. It appears to be great success. And then the last question was just that. Do you anticipate or administrative, not necessarily cost, but uptick in effort to make this happen out of the finance department? You just demonstrated you don't think it will?
Correct. So once the county becomes participating, the way it works is each year we get from the lenders a printout. It's actually spelled out. It has to be an Excel printout, an Excel sheet that lists the assessments due. We take that and we send it to the county. So we send it up to Newcastle County. They use that, and then they put that into their billing system somehow, and it generates a bill. So in Newcastle County, we did 2 loans, about $6.7 million, but it was actually 6 properties because it was a commercial condo unit. So there was actually a deal for every unit. So it was a little more complicated than average. That was not a big concern was the cost. So that's about it. We tried hard from the beginning to let the counties know that, if there is an expense, you may have to hire one of your programmers to come in and fool with your billing system. We'd be willing to talk about picking up the cost of that. So, we're trying to make it neutral for you guys.
Any other commissioners? Okay, Tony, you want to introduce your...
Sure. So Andre, from the Project Cape, they're calling it.
I want to thank the committee for giving us an opportunity to come here this evening. I'm not going to get into the details of the program, as Tony's far more well-versed in that. As you may know, the project is roughly an $80 million project now, divided between an investment in real estate acquisition development and then an operating company that will produce and manufacture corrugated product. We've built a very similar facility in California, built one in Covington, Georgia, and Indiana. Particularly in California, the environmental component of our processes motivated the government there, the state, to provide loans, not exactly like this, but similar, which really helped us move the capital stack around, which is what we'd like to do here. Right now, we're looking at approximately $45 million in equipment for the operating company. And within 3 years, or even sooner, depending on the customer mix, we could grow that by $12 million. But we're looking now to initiate construction development right now, essentially. So we're in the middle of this pandemic. things have gone a little tighter. The bank's still on board, but they are combing through things a little more tightly, and they are putting a little more pressure on us. We hope that if we could avail ourselves to this program, we could loosen up some of the funds that are going to the equity component, loan component on the real estate to go to the operating side. And what we're talking about there is hopefully reaching manufacturing, say maybe end of May, early June, if all goes very well. And that would initiate the process of hiring up to 160 employees within 3 years. We hope to do that even sooner. But having a sort of sense of liquidity, because we have a more comfortable loan stack, that's something that's important to us. As well, we would probably start off with solar from the beginning if we had the PACE program. We're looking about maybe putting 0.75 megawatts on the roof, which really would help out in terms of cost structure on the manufacturing side, bring that down. As well, we're already inclined to build a building that is better than current code, and definitely the machinery that we're placing is the latest and state of the art with really no effluents, no emissions, nothing. All of that would actually benefit even more from this program. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions, gentlemen?
Alan?
Seeing nobody?
Alan?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Questions?
Mr. Bedmarsh.
Andres, thanks for being with us this evening, and
Having difficulty hearing you, Mike, I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry. First of all, thank you for being with us this evening.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering, and if you mentioned it already, I apologize, but what is your anticipated investment in clean energy within this $80 million complex?
Well, it depends how you look at that, right? But I mean, if you're talking about HVAC systems, you're talking about insulation, or are you talking about the machinery? So,
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but how much would we be using the PACE financing? I mean, what would be the
well,
the loan amount?
assuming with solar, that would give us a 20% efficiency, which we think we would easily get between the building as we're constructing it and the solar. So anywhere from $6 to $8 million. So that's almost 10% of the project as is estimated right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to take a shot too, Mike. So the way it works for new construction, so new construction and reconstruction.
Mr. Prima, please use his mic.
So this is a new construction project. So in a new construction project, to qualify for our financing, you have to exceed the current energy code. And so the more energy efficient they build their building above code, it qualifies them for a higher percentage. So what you just heard was, and I think it's, you can qualify for up to 15% of the project cost, not including the real estate, which is how he's getting the $6 to $7 million on the assumption that they will exceed the energy code. So it's an exceedance of an energy code that we mark.
Okay.
And they're going to do that through, could be through motors, insulation, heating and air conditioning system.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any more questions? Seeing none.
I have one more question for Mr. DePrima, if I would, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead, sir.
Okay. Mr. DePrima, you mentioned and it's in the document that the DSEU would reimburse the county for any reasonable expenses for any adjustments we need to make to our billing system, like software adjustments or what have you. But there's also a processing fee, and it's referred to in a appendix or Exhibit C. Can you explain how that works? That's a one-time processing fee, or is it a per annual processing fee?
So it's a one-time fee. In many other states, it's an annual fee that goes to the tax bill or goes to the billing office annually. When we sat down with, and you were part of the committee, we had a committee and counties were represented. There was a general feeling like we don't want to bother having to bill you every year for like the $150 fee, which tends to be typical. So we actually came up with a one-time schedule. So, and it's based on the length of the term of the loan. So it's kind of unique. So the longer you have to service it, the more you would get. So the one in Newcastle County, they were all 20-year terms, and there were 6 of them. So Newcastle County got the maximum $1,500 per unit as their fee for servicing.
And is that paid up front, or is that paid?
Paid up front at closing.
At closing.
So what happens at closing, we got a check, and then we in turn distribute it to the county. Now, the part where I'm offering to pay your costs, I don't think that actually made the agreement. That's just Tony DePrima's word that we would help you as long as it's reasonable.
It's in there.
Oh, is it? Well, maybe it is. I don't know.
See, I think it's on page 6. at the
Okay.
top.
So we may have baked it in there.
You see that?
On the C?
No, on page 6 of the agreement, the Delaware Sustainable Energy Utility will reimburse the county for any reasonable one-time expenses that are incurred to the county to participate in the
Okay,
DPH
so
program.
it's baked in there then. I forgot. Thank you. So you don't have to worry about my word. It's in the agreement.
Any other questions for Mr. DePrima? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. At this time, I know we're going to open up public comments too, but I'd like to get Mrs. Linda Parkowski's comments on this item since she's our economic person for the county.
Hi, gentlemen. How you doing tonight? Thank you, and thank you, Andres, for being here, and Tony for putting this together. This is just another economic development tool in the toolbox. And to be able to offer this to the box plant is probably one of the biggest things that's happening in the state, let alone Central Delaware, during this time period, especially during COVID. So I think anything that we can do to support it and make it become a reality, as long as it fits into the county criteria, it doesn't cause a burden to the county or the finance department, I think that this is a win-win for all of us. And, prior to this, I came to you and I asked for strategic funds and I asked for a tax abatement for the box plant, and you granted it. And that, may not have been the sole thing that tipped them to come to Kent County, but it certainly was something that added to the enticement to come to Kent County and Central Delaware. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and I think we probably can use this feature in the future. I have another manufacturer that's touring Kent County in the next couple weeks, and to build a new facility. So this could be something that we certainly can use in our toolbox for them to entice them to come and not choose Federalsburg, Maryland, or someplace in southeast Pennsylvania or South Jersey. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions, gentlemen? No? Thank you very much, Linda, for giving us that overview too. Thank you. Move this forth to the business meeting, and we'll have a motion put forth in consent in case there's a question.
Consent agenda?
Sorry?
Consent agenda?
Consent agenda, yes, sir.
Thank you.
7. Thank you all. Any public comments on this one item? Or these 3 items, I'm sorry. Any public comments on these 3 items?
If we have any callers on the phone line who wish to make a comment, please press star 1 on your phone, and we can unmute you. We have callers, but they're not interested in speaking.
All right, thank you. Mr. President, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Angel. Public Works, Mr. Howell.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll ask Ms. Gold to come forward. One item.
Good evening, Commissioners. The item before you tonight is grit removal equipment upgrade baffle purchase. So we have a 4-chamber grit removal system at the plant, and it was, half of it was constructed in 1997, and the other half was constructed in 2007. The newer units have been less effective, and we've been talking with the manufacturer of the system and asking, what kind of improvements can we make here? So what we're looking at doing is adding inlet and exit baffles, which will improve the flow path and allow collection of more grit. Smith & Loveless is the manufacturer of the system, and they've provided a quote for 2 complete baffle systems, which is $120,180, and the equipment will be installed in those newer chambers, the ones from 2007, by county staff and by the county's general labor and equipment contractor. The cost for the outside labor is expected to be about $10,000. The good news is we budgeted $240,000 for the project, and it was budgeted in FY20, was half the money and the other half in FY21. So we're recommending that we move forward with the project, and there are 2 motions before you all for your consideration.
Any questions or comments? All right, I would recommend this go to consent agenda next week. All in favor? 7 up. Are there any comments in our audiences about this item?
If any callers online or on the phone line want to comment, please press *1 now. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. President. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Mr. Vice President. You're correct. With that being said, we've already voted on it. So, pardon me? Yeah, we've already done it. So we're good. So with that being said, we'll now move into executive session from which we will not be returning. We are adjourned.
Is Gary here yet?
He said he'd be here today.
Okay. I just texted him.
Conference recording has stopped.